bear with me because as soon as the speech is over, I'm going to go see them first because they've been waiting out in the sun for all this time. All right, now, on to the speech. Guys, I've got good news for you and bad news for you.
Bad news first.
Bad news first, exactly. The bad news is that the corruption in D.C. is actually worse than you even realize. And I want to talk to you about that, but I want you to keep in mind as I tell you about the problem that there is a cure. And the good news is there is a great wave coming. And it is not their wave, it is our wave. So when I say our wave, I don't mean just Democrats, although I do mean Justice Democrats. I mean that there is a populist progressive wave out there, the likes of which they have never seen. So in 2018, we're going to be in phenomenal shape. In 2020, the tsunami is going to hit. And so I know we're at our nadir now, and I know that we've got Donald Trump, who's a buffoon and a monster in office, but we are going to use this moment to galvanize everyone, and they are already galvanized, and the country's on fire, and we're going to take that energy, and we're going to take our country back, and most importantly, our democracy back. And that's exactly what I want to talk to you guys about today. So we hear, and look, I'll give you one more fact about what's coming. Within the Democratic Party, civil war is coming.
Yeah.
So they blame that on us. No, you don't get to do that. We were right, you were wrong. We said don't run an establishment candidate, let alone the most establishment candidate that we've ever seen in this country. We told you to watch out for Donald Trump. We told you to watch out for populism, but you didn't listen. You didn't listen. You buried your head in the sand, and what happened? We didn't lose to Donald Trump. You lost to Donald Trump, and you got to own that. And you know what? Why there's a war coming? Because we're not going to let you lose to him again. So what is the real resistance? So is it the resistance just against Donald Trump? No. Is the resistance against him as a starting point? Of course! Of course! We will resist him with every fiber in our body. So I was on C-SPAN this morning and they asked me about obstructionism. I said, now this is your talking point, obstructionism? After 8 years of literally record-breaking obstructionism, now we're talking about it? After they broke the record on filibusters, in fact, tripled the record on filibusters, now we're talking about obstructionism? So when they blocked things that were deeply popular in the country, 60%, 70%, 80% popular, you didn't talk, you called it even. You said, oh, it could be the Republicans, it could be Obama. Obama didn't have a beer summit with them, right? Now, when Donald Trump wants to do things that are deeply unpopular in the country, we're obstructionists? Are you kidding me? So in reality, if we agree with Donald Trump, and there are a tiny amount of things we do, for example, the TPP, both populist right and populist left are against TPP. For the moment being, he has not let that go forward. I don't really quite believe it, but for the moment being, that's what's happened. Great, fantastic, no problem, agreement. Everything else? No, we don't agree. Are we going to block him? Hell yeah, we're going to block him. We're going to block him every step of the way. Why the hell would we agree to a Supreme Court candidate that works for the multinational corporations, ruthlessly so, is willing to literally let workers die in the freezing cold, and then claims that he's an independent jurist? He's not independent at all. He knows that if he works for those corporations, that a Republican president is likely to put him on the Supreme Court, and then the more he favors multinational corporations, the better for his career. And that is exactly what happened. So of course we fight against that. Are we going to fight against $7 trillion in tax cuts for the rich? Of course we're going to fight against that. So that's the easy stuff. Although, by the way, for some corporate Democrats, not as easy as it is for us. So when you talk about Obamacare, yes, we are united. We want to protect it, we want to expand it, we want to do better than that, right? Well, when we say do better than that, again, the corporate Democrats say maybe. We'll get to that in a second. On taxes, not as united. Now, isn't it easy? Unity, they want unity? Sure. Why would we agree to trillions of dollars in tax cuts for the rich? But apparently, some of the corporate Democrats think, well, maybe the tax holiday is not so bad, and other parts are not so bad. No, they're really, really bad. We want to fight Trump way, way harder than you want to fight him. Okay? Now, that's all relatively easy when you fight back against Trump. But the revolution is just that. It's not a little bit of resistance. It's not a medium amount of resistance. It's a revolution. And the revolution existed before Donald Trump. It's not like we knew Trump was going to be president. Everybody thought he wasn't going to be president. And we still wanted the revolution. Now, what the Democrats want to do is they want to trick you into thinking, oh, it's all about Trump, and as soon as we get rid of him, we'll go right back to the status quo. My answer to that is, hell no. You guys want the status quo? No! Can I get a hell no? Hell no! I say status quo, you say hell no. Status quo! Hell no! Status quo! Hell no! Status quo! Hell no! I love it. All right, now, look, we want massive change, but the corporate Democrats don't. And so every once in a while they say, well, now are you saying that these politicians are corrupt? Yeah. I think you just got the answer from the audience. Yep. That's exactly what I'm saying. Now look, generally speaking, they're systemically corrupt because we've set up this insane system where you're allowed to give money to politicians, millions of dollars to politicians, and then those corporatists on the Supreme Court go, well, I don't see any corruption. I mean, why would millions of dollars corrupt anybody? I mean, what a preposterous, ridiculous thought. So when they asked during the campaign, and the CNN and other mainstream media anchors asked it with such incredulity, like, are you saying Hillary Clinton might have changed her vote based on money she received? Like, that was the most outrageous and outlandish thing that they'd ever heard. My answer to that is, yes, that's what I'm saying. Of course she changed her votes. They all changed their votes. I mean, look, I can give you specific examples. Obviously, the bankruptcy bill, she thought it was a bad idea. When she was not in office, she gets millions upon millions upon millions of dollars in campaign contributions and later, literally stuff that goes straight into her pocket from the banks, and all of a sudden she agrees with the banks on the bankruptcy bill. Did she change her vote on that? Yes, she did. But it's not just that, guys. It's a mindset, and as we saw from those leaked transcripts of her speeches to the bankers, there's something I say in public, and there's something else I say in private. There's something I say to the people to get their votes and trick them, and there's something I say to my banker friends. And to me, look, we can do an hour on that, but just let me say one more thing about those speeches to the bankers. She said to them, hey, if I get into office, I am going to look for your help in fixing the system. But that makes no sense. They're the ones who broke the system in the first place. For her to assume that the crooks who broke the system would help fix the system is either monumentally naive or exactly part of the corruption. And we do not want an establishment Democrat who's going to come in here and go, hello, banker friends, what would you like me to do? No, we say no to that. So if you want us to bow our heads to that, we say no. And if you're going to go to war with that, then we'll go to war. And we didn't start this war. Look, if you want unity, it's the easiest thing in the world. Okay, let's unify behind progressive values, and progressive values that are, by the way, incredibly popular. I'm not asking you to do anything radical. I'm asking you to do simple, obvious things that are going to win you elections. Almost every policy plank, for example, that the Justice Democrats have, or our revolution has, or what Bernie Sanders has asked for, has over 60% popularity in the country. So what on God's green earth could be wrong with that? So let's unify behind that. Nope, I don't want to unify behind it. Well, then I didn't cause the problem. You caused the problem. You want unity, corporate Democrats? Easy, super easy. I think we're going to get everybody in this room and everybody in the audience to agree. unity behind the most popular politician in the country. That makes sense, doesn't it? Who the hell else would you unify behind? Would you unify behind the unpopular ones? What kind of maniacal idea is that? So yes, and I got news for you. Maybe Washington will sometimes says it under their breath, but we can scream it here. Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in the country. So whether they like it or they don't, not only does he have a 61% approval rating, he's starting to get to a point where he might soon double Trump in approval ratings. And also Hillary Clinton. You know what Hillary Clinton's at? We were told that she was a better candidate. We weren't pragmatic enough, guys. We weren't realistic enough. All those really smart corporate Democrats, they knew how to win. Except they lost to a guy with a 37% approval rating on the day of the election. You can't be a bigger loser than that. So they need us to protect the country to not lose to people like Donald Trump again. You know what Hillary Clinton's at today? She's at 35% approval rating. If they held the election today, according to the most recent polling, she would lose again. Despite how unpopular Donald Trump is, despite his monstrous policies, she would actually lose by a bigger margin today than she would have on election day. Meanwhile, Bernie, the most popular politician in either party, and we're still having a conversation about who was right and who was wrong, and who we should unify behind, it's a no-brainer. Anyone who is rational, anyone who is honest knows that if you actually believed in unity, you would unify behind, have I said it too many times, the most popular politician in the country, right? Bernie has an 80% approval rating within the Democratic Party, so don't tell me he doesn't represent the Democratic Party, because 80% of the Democratic Party, the voters, say he represents us. So, hey, Chuck Schumer, hey, Nancy Pelosi, hey, Dianne Feinstein, Joe Manchin, you got 80% approval rating in the Democratic Party? You got a 61% approval rating in the country? No, you don't. No, you don't. So why on God's green earth would I unify behind you instead of Bernie Sanders? And what's most important about Bernie Sanders is, and he's the first one to tell you this, it's not about a cult of personality. It's not about Bernie himself. It's about what does he stand for. So yes, if Diogenes was in Washington, he would have looked and looked and looked, and finally he would have found Bernie, the one honest man, right? But what has Bernie stood for all those years, for all those 40 years where he's been saying the same thing? And the mainstream media is like, oh, so boring, representing people for 40 straight years, being consistent and honest, boring, right? So what he said is, we gotta clean this system up. It's not that complicated. We gotta represent people and not the donors. It's just not complicated. They just don't want to hear the message. So to what degree do they listen to the donors? Look, I've had a lot of conversations on air, but also off air. And this is the part where it's worse than you think. So when it comes to the big bankers, the country hated them after 2008. How many millions of jobs did they lose to them for us? 8 million, 12 million, 13 million is one count I saw. And deeply, deeply unpopular and deservedly so. And we saw the emails where they talked about the fraud that they committed. So it wasn't an accident. It wasn't like, oh, golly gee, this is what happens sometimes. What are you guys sweating it for? No, we saw the emails with the fraud. But not one of them went to jail. Now, was that a smart, popular, realistic, pragmatic thing to do? No. It was a corrupt thing to do. They are the #1 donors. They were for Barack Obama in 2008. They are a huge set of donors for the Republican Party, but also huge donors to the Democratic Party. So if you're going to put fraudulent bankers ahead of us, and you're never going to hold them accountable, sorry, we're not interested in that. And so you'll excuse me if I don't unify behind your pro-banker strategy, which is a miserable losing strategy, by the way. Right now, the Democratic Party polls worse than the Republican Party. Are you kidding me? Why? Why? Because they're pragmatic? No, because the people aren't nearly as stupid as the Democratic establishment thinks they are. We see the corruption with our own eyes. You think you can hide it? Big Pharma. I mean, look at this insane system we've set up. We cannot negotiate, the government by law, cannot negotiate with drug companies. Why? Why can't we? Wait a minute. In capitalism, you guys claim to be in favor of capitalism. In capitalism, you negotiate for lower prices. They go, no, I don't want capitalism. All of a sudden, they love socialism. Socialism is a dirty word when it comes to you guys. You want to help people in America? No, socialism, super dirty. Hugo Chavez, Venezuela, right? Okay, how about socialism for the big drug companies when you set up monopolies? Oh, it's awesome. I love socialism. Halliburton, no bid contracts. Remind me where Adam Smith talked about no bid contracts. That is not a thing that you do in actual capitalism. So don't pretend you're in favor of capitalism. You know what they're in favor of. Privatize the gains, socialize the losses. And so the drug companies do it. During the bailouts of the banks did it in record amounts. Not only the hundreds of billions of dollars that they got in the bailouts, but the trillions that they got through the Fed, through the back door. What happened to capitalism? If you fail, you go under. And the government could have taken those banks, revitalized them, and then made them private again. It's not something that hasn't happened before. Iceland did it. And you know what? Their economy recovered a lot better than any other country. These are facts, but they don't want to see the facts because they are corrupt. Am I saying you're corrupt? Washington establishment Democrats? Hell yes I am. You are corrupt. You've gotten corrupted by this system. I don't know if you were a decent person when you came in, and I don't need to talk about whether you're a decent person or a moral person now. I know the results. And the results are you represent big drug companies, you set up monopolies for them. Bush did it, Obama did it, and then all of a sudden we got a drug importation bill. Now get a load of this. They tell us, these same corrupt politicians, that, oh my God, we can't take drugs in from Canada, it's unsafe. It's the same exact drugs. Same exact drugs. No, those Canadians are wild and dangerous. Okay? But when it comes to the dirtiest fossil fuel in the world, the Keystone Pipeline, all of a sudden, oh yeah, import that right away. The Canadians are great, they're wonderful, they're safe. So the dirtiest oil in the world is fine from Canada. The cleanest drugs in the world, not fine from Canada. Gee, I wonder who's in charge. It's the oil companies, it's the drug companies, and it ain't us. So when Cory Booker tells me that the drugs are not safe from Canada, what happened? All of a sudden, hey Cory, we're all watching. In the old days, you go do pretty little speeches, and then you turn around and you vote with your donors, and TV covers for you. Scarborough comes out in there and goes, oh man, Cory Booker, what a wonderful, hey, watch out for that guy. He's a real challenge. Okay, now we see everything you're doing. And then all of a sudden, what did Booker do? Because of the pressure you guys put on. They tell you not to put pressure all the time. They say that hurts the party. No, it hurts their pocketbooks. When you put the pressure on, all of a sudden Cory Booker flipped around and was like, I meant to vote with Bernie. What do you mean? I'm doing an amendment with Bernie, right? Oh, you are, aren't you, right? Why? Because of you guys. Because you have that power. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. So, I knew that we were going to start winning. This was the beginning. It was in 2010. Because in the old days, it's just a monopoly on TV, and they just support the establishment, lock, stock, and barrel, right? But in 2010, Obama gives a speech about health care as they're trying to, wrap this Affordable Care Act up. And he's in North Carolina, he's on a college campus, everybody's raucous, they love Obama still, and everything's going fine. And in the middle of the speech, he says, and now shepherding this bill for us in the Senate, great senator from Montana, Democratic Senator Max Baucus. And he hears, boo. And like, you could almost see him flinch, like, right? Because those students don't get their news from TV. They get their news from the internet. And on the internet, they told you that Max Baucus was the #1 recipient of healthcare industry money. Those are his donors, and guess who killed the public option? Max Baucus. We were right, and they were wrong. It happens all the time. But in the old days, nobody would have found out. Now you can't run, you can't hide, we see you, and we're coming for you. So Baucus is already out, and don't talk to me about Cory Booker and how he represents Democrats. So Look, unfortunately, what we have here in Washington is an occupation. We have been occupied by big money. And like I said, even more so off air, I hear Democrats saying, hey guys, don't be unrealistic. We gotta take their money. Well, that comes with a price, doesn't it? So you can't have it both ways. You can't tell me that you gotta take their money and that it doesn't affect your vote. They're not giving you millions of dollars. Actually, when you total it all up, billions of dollars for their health. They're multinational corporations or they're incredibly wealthy billionaires. And they're giving it to you because they want something in return. And every actual American knows that. But here in Washington, D.C., they close their eyes and they say, I see no evil, I hear no evil, I speak no evil. There's no occupation. No, of course, people just give away millions and billions of dollars and don't ask for anything in return. It almost sounds like communism, right? Isn't it funny how much they believe in socialism and communism when it's for the rich and when it's for the corporations? When they say they're against welfare. Are you kidding me? We do literally trillions of dollars in corporate welfare. You know that the oil companies to this day get anywhere between, there's different numbers depending on how you count, $14 to $40 billion a year in tax subsidies. Now, why the hell would the most profitable corporations in the world need subsidies from us? They take our hard-earned money, our taxes, and they give it away in subsidies to the most profitable companies in the world. How the hell does that make sense? There's only one way that it makes sense. It's because we're living under an occupation. So the corporations are the machines that have been built. We built them. They took over. We allowed them to bribe our politicians, and they have unsurprisingly turned the system into something that only benefits them and not us. So that leads to answers like Dianne Feinstein's the other day. So Dianne Feinstein's doing a town hall. We went to go cover it. I think Michael Tracy was standing outside. One of our investigative reporters was the only camera there. And thank God he was there because somebody asked her, hey, are you for Medicare for all? She said no, and there was a cascade of boos. Then she said, let's break down this answer. She said, yeah, in the future I would be in favor of it, but right now it's unrealistic. The always excuse, right? And then she said, because it's a government takeover of medicine. Oh, hold on. So let's break this down. If it's a government takeover of medicine, then aren't you against it, period? So wait, are you going to try to fight for it in the future or are you not? You just told me it's a government takeover of medicine and you're against it. So you're not going to fight for it, right? So you just, a minute ago, you were lying, right? In fact, you've been lying your whole career as you told us that you were going to fight for all these progressive values. When, Senator Feinstein? You're like 108 years old. When are you going to get to it? When are you going to get to it? The answer is you're never, ever, ever going to get to it. So I asked one of these people here in Washington who pretends to be a leader of a progressive group. I said, what the hell are you doing about money in politics? We'll talk about that a little bit more later when it comes to Wolfpack. And he said, hey kid, I've been fighting against money in politics for the last 40 years. I said, how's that going? So Dianne Feinstein, you tell me you've been fighting for Medicare for all? No, first of all, you've been fighting against it and you're fighting against it right now as we speak. But even if you were fighting for it, how's that going? Right? So now let's break down the second parts of our answer. It's a government takeover. That is Republican talking point 101. They have internalized the occupation. They act like they are an occupied people. It's not just establishment Democrats or corporate Democrats, it's Vichy Democrats. They have internalized the talking points of the enemy, and they regurgitate it to you. She's in front of a Democratic town hall saying, it's a government takeover. Don't do anything to help the people, it's a government takeover. Third part of that is a government takeover of medicine. No, you gotta go. That's, even if you thought Medicare for all was a bad idea, because it's a government takeover of insurance, it's not a government takeover of medicine. That means you don't know anything. In this town, you breathe a word against Dianne Feinstein, and they're like, oh, how dare you? The beloved and cherished and respected Dianne Feinstein. It's one thing if you're against Joe Manchin, they understand, hey, you know, he votes with the Republicans a lot and he voted for Gorsuch, etc. But not Feinstein. And you ruffians, you barbarians, how could you be against such a respected senator? She doesn't even know what Medicare is. What do you mean respected? How am I supposed to respect someone who thinks that Medicare for all is a government takeover of medicine? No, that's grotesque incompetence, and that incompetence has been sitting there for decade after decade, helping the people in power and making sure we don't actually get change. You gotta go. You gotta go. Feinstein's gotta go. Manchin's gotta go. Eichmann's gotta go. We didn't start this war. When you fight against Medicare for all, you started the war. When you fight against free education for kids who earned it, who want to live the American dream but are not rich, you started the war. I didn't start the war, okay? When we fight to get money out of politics and you say, no, let's keep money in politics, it's unrealistic, I didn't start the war, you started the war. They started the war against progressive values. You want to start something, we'll finish it. So we will unify behind the most popular politician in the country. We will unify behind deeply popular programs in the country, not just with Democrats, but overall. Do you know that Medicare for All is now polling at above 60%? But Dianne Feinstein, in California, deeply blue California, why do we have a corporatist Democrat? Why do we need a corporate establishment Democrat in California? Shouldn't California have the two most progressive people in the Senate? Shouldn't they be putting pressure on Bernie from the left? Hawaii, we're having a conversation about Hawaii, Rhode Island, these are the bluest places in the country. In Connecticut, we got congressmen who are Democrats who are representing Goldman Sachs, going around whenever you have legislation about the bankers, hey, let's ease up on the bankers. Oh, you worked for Goldman Sachs earlier. Oh, what a wonderful coincidence. You take a tremendous amount of money from Goldman Sachs' donations. What a wonderful coincidence. No, we don't agree to have congressmen representing Goldman Sachs in Connecticut. We don't agree. We don't agree. You started the war, we'll end the war. We're going to primary you, okay? I'm just getting started. So I'm going to stay with Medicare for just one more minute here. Medicare for all, 60%. Medicare itself polls at 77% approval rating. So the idea behind Medicare for all is, let's take this program that is the second most popular program in the country. Number one is Social Security. Another thing that, by the way, even Obama promised to cut to work with the Republicans. Luckily, they were so greedy they didn't take the offer, okay? That's exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about the Democrats who are occupied and have already surrendered. We don't agree to surrender, okay? We will never surrender on Social Security. And we won't surrender on Medicare. So now you're telling, let's break this down. Why is Medicare so popular? Number one, it covers everybody. Number two, it has better benefits. So if you're above 65, you're covered. You got Medicare. That's it. It covers everybody. Trump, you said you were going to cover everybody? No problem. Medicare. But it also has better benefits. Holy cow, how did that happen? Number three, it costs less. Wait a minute. Tell me the bad part. There isn't a bad part. It polls at 77% because it works. Because it works.
How do the insurance companies make money from that?
Yeah, that's the problem. And so, why, by the way, how does that magic happen? It's not magic. You take out the middleman. So the health insurance companies serve no purpose at all. Their purpose is, I'm going to make money off of trying to provide you as little insurance as I could possibly get away with. Well, then why the fuck would I want you? So they're like, okay, now we're going back to, according to the Republican proposal, we're going to back to the bad old days of pre-existing conditions, and they can crank up your rates 5x. Sometimes if you had cancer, they can crank up your rates 35 times of what they were. But then why would I want, what's the point of insurance? Yeah, oh, well, if you get sick, then it's going to cost us more. I know, that's why I have insurance. That's the whole point. Apparently, here, another genius, according to Washington, is Paul Ryan. You guys remember that press conference where he did a pie chart? And he's like, according to Obamacare, the healthy pay into the system and finance the people who get sick. Yeah, knucklehead, that's called insurance. So they're so, like, you know what, they're useful idiots. You think Paul Ryan's smart? He doesn't even understand. He's the genius of the Republican Party. He's the one that put together their health care proposal. Doesn't even understand the basics of insurance. He's an idiot. The only reason he's there is because when the Koch brothers come and call and he says, yes, sir, absolutely, sir. What else do you need, sir? That's what a whole point of Paul Ryan is. And now, unfortunately, the entire National Republican Party and unfortunately, a large part of the Democratic Party. So, but they tell us not to fight back. Like I said earlier, why? Because it works. So on Medicare for All, there's good congressmen, 76 co-sponsors for it in the House already. That's great, right? John Conyers had proposed it. A lot of good congresspeople that are progressives supporting it. But 76 is not even the majority of the Democrats in the House. That's kind of weird. Why only 76? So what did Justice Democrats do? So Justice Democrats, if you don't know, is a progressive, strong wing of the Democratic Party. We started it just a couple months ago. Already have this. Oh, you kids, yeah, not realistic, not pragmatic. You see, there's this thing called money that you need to run these things, and you guys will never raise any money, except we've already raised $1.2 million. Yeah. Now, to be fair though, the percentage of that came from multinational corporations is 0. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in a second. But so Justice Democrats on Medicare for All start asking publicly, all the congressmen, all the Democrats, why aren't you for Medicare for All? Why aren't you for Medicare for All? Oh, that's pressure, that's uncomfortable, shoot, that's going to hurt me with my constituents. Yeah, I'm for Medicare for All. All of a sudden, 28 new co-sponsors in just 1 month. That's how politics works. That's realistic, that's pragmatic, that's hardball. Okay, that isn't beer summits and pretty please. So right now we have 104 Democratic congressmen for Medicare for All. That's the majority of the Democrats in the House. And John Conyers has thanked the National Nurses Union, who did a wonderful job on it, brand new Congress, and Justice Democrats. And he said, thank you to the Justice Democrats for doing what you did. And I'm telling you now, I've talked to even more congressmen since then, off the record. And obviously I'm not going to give names here, but they say, yeah, it worked. In fact, can you do that for other pieces of progressive legislation? What I want you to understand is that you have power. And they're actually afraid of you. And that's actually a wonderful thing. In politics, it's all about power. And if they're afraid of you, they will bend to you. For 40 years, they've been afraid of the Republicans, and they have bent, and they have bent, and they have bent. They've been afraid of the donors, and they have bent, and they have bent, and they have bent. Now they will bend to us. Oh, by the way, Bernie's going to introduce Medicare for All in the Senate. Good news. You know how many? It's coming very, very soon. Do you know how many co-sponsors he has in the Senate? 0. 0. Wait a minute. What happened to unity? Medicare for All polling at above 60%. Medicare at 77%. Deeply popular with the Democratic voters. Got 104 congressmen now in the Senate. You got the most popular person in your party saying Medicare for All, but 0 co-sponsors. Now, you don't believe in unity, do you? It was a lie, it was a trick, it was a trap. They don't believe in unity at all. For them, what unity means is bow your head. know that we are the adults here and that you must accept corruption. We do not accept it. We do not surrender to it. So when it comes to the Justice Democrats, we're told that we have a purity test because we have 23 things on our platform. Of those 23 items, they almost all poll above 60%. They're incredibly popular with the American people. But we actually don't require that you agree to any of them except one. So 22 of them are not litmus tests, they're not purity tests. Anyone who tells you that is lying. When they talk about progressives who have purity tests, not true. There's only one thing that you have to agree to. You cannot take corporate or PAC money. You know why? Because corruption is non-negotiable. So I can't have an honest conversation with you if I don't know who you represent. If I know that you're not taking corporate or PAC money, then I know you're honest and want to represent your voters. Your voters in Montana might have a different point of view on guns than I do. You might have a different view on the border if you live in El Paso as opposed to Vermont. I don't know, okay? And I want you to head in the right direction, and I know what's popular, I know what's progressive, we all know it, and I think a lot of them are going to be with us on the great majority of those. But the one thing that we absolutely need is to know that you're an honest actor and that you don't agree to the corruption, and you don't surrender to the corruption. So that's the only one. And so what a weird impurity test the establishment has for us. That, oh, you guys, you know, we can't, you should unify behind us. You must accept that we take corporate money and that you should do likewise. Why do we have to agree to that? We don't have to agree to that. So there's a very easy answer to this, right? It's called democracy. You take corporate money, we don't take corporate money, and we'll see your ass in the primaries. That's when they say, whoa, 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 wait a minute. Primaries, bad, don't do primaries. Don't do primaries. Huh, it's interesting how emotional you get about that issue. It's interesting how worried you seem to be about primaries. There's good reason. First of all, primaries work. They say, no, primaries hurt the party. They hurt the party. Really? Republicans primary their incumbents all the time. And they won the Senate, they won the House, they won the White House, they got the Supreme Court, they got 69 out of 99 state legislatures. Looks like primaries work. They don't hurt the party, they help the party. Isn't it interesting that all these pragmatic, realistic people in Washington never care about any of the facts? Do you see people on TV saying, oh, I'll tell you one thing, primaries definitely work, it's empirical. Look, Republicans did it and it worked great for them. Democrats, generally speaking, don't do it, and their party is an epic failure. You never hear that, right? Because they want to protect the people that are already in power. They think they have a right to incumbency. We think we have a right to democracy. Then the next level of it is, no, listen, you kids, you're so naive. They always think they're so smart. I'm going to repeat it. If you're so smart, how come all you have is losses to show for it? How many times can we have you lose one election after another, and then you come back and tell me how smart you are? I'm beginning to think you're not so smart. I'm beginning to think you're not so realistic. I'm beginning to think that you like losing. In fact, you're paid to lose. And the reason they're paid to lose, so you understand this again, in Washington, they find this shocking, right? How could you say that? Who would be paid to lose? These Democrats, I know them, they're trying really hard. Are they? Now, we go to the Barney Frank rule. Barney Frank told Jordan Chariton, another one of our reporters, during the primaries, he said, well, what do you want us to do? Just let the Republicans take 100% of the banker money instead of 80%? Yes! Yes! So, because Barney, I don't know if you understand the words coming out of your mouth. If they take 100% of the banker money, then you're clean, you're not corrupted by the system, and you could actually appeal to voters instead of donors. But maybe even more importantly is the second part of that. If you only take 20% of the big donor money, you are then paid to lose. You will be a perpetual loser. Who is so stupid and unrealistic and not pragmatic enough to think, hey, I'll give the other party a 4-to-1 advantage. What do you want me to do, not take the one? Yes! I don't want you to have a perpetual 4-to-1 disadvantage. How stupid are you? So we don't accept it. We don't accept it. So now, in the red states we're told, no. Again, you naive kids, you don't know how to win in red states. We know how to win in red states. Well, you got a curious way of showing it. Remind me how many blue dog Democrats are left. Not many. Not many. I was told the blue dog Democrats are really realistic and pragmatic, and they know how to win, and that's in the red states. You got to sell out, and you got to be pro-big business, and you got to be Republican-like. I'd ask the blue dog Democrats how that's working out, except the fact that they're all gone. They all lost. So they might have won the first election when somebody was sick and tired of the incredibly corrupt Republican in that particular race. And then they'll almost always lose the second election because they come in there and they do their Republican-like shtick. You remember Mark Pryor with this Bible ad? Oh, for Christ's sake. Ironic. Look, if you're going to run to their strength, because they're the ones who surround themselves in religion and the Bible, etc., at least do it right. Don't go in there and go, oh, I love the Bible. A little bit less for Republicans, but I love it. And if you're going to vote based on the Bible, you should vote on the other guy. But maybe, please stick with me. No, you say, hey, what did Jesus stand for? Who's the first? Does Jesus attack? He's a Prince of Peace, but he does attack. What did he attack? The money changers in the temple. So let's go get the money changers and throw their asses out. Look, this is funny, an agnostic giving advice to Christians, but they can't seem to do it right, so I'll preach for them. Okay, if you're going to talk about Jesus, at least get it right. Okay, what was the #1 thing Jesus was in favor of? The poor and the needy. He said it is harder for a rich man to get into heaven than for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle. And he said, amen. And he said it over and over and over again. If you're going to use Jesus, use him right. And they say, death penalty. You know who got the death penalty? Jesus. How could any Christian be in favor of the death penalty when Jesus Christ got the death penalty? They can't figure that out. They've never read the Bible. They don't know that Jesus is for the poor.
They're cafeteria Christians.
No. They don't want to figure it out. Because they don't want to win. Their idea of winning is, how much money did I raise? No, to be fair to Hillary Clinton, she did outraise Donald Trump 2-to-1. How'd that turn out? Now, presidential elections are a little weird because you get so much free media. So it's complicated in that sense, and at the local level, the money does crush. That's why we've got to get the money out of the system. I'm going to go to Wolfpack in a second. But I want everybody to understand that our platform, let alone the blue states, where it's inarguable. There's no reason why you should have the most progressive people in the blue states. But in the red states, our platform is infinitely more popular than the corporate Democratic platform. So their idea is, no, you don't understand. In West Virginia, you got to be for big business. What? Why? Where's your polling on that? I know Chris Matthews and Joe Scarborough like to say it. Where the fuck is your polling on that? Because the reality is, big business polls worse than big media, okay? Mainstream media, corporate media. Deeply unpopular now, but big business is even less popular. Do you know that big business polls even worse than politicians? It's almost the only thing in the country that polls worse than politicians. Tell me again why they like big business in red states. They don't like big business in red states. You like big business on TV because you're owned by big business. So that's all nothing but lies. So they're not going to do any better by going, oh yeah, I'm Republican light and I stand for big business, etc. No, when we say we got two messages for the red states who are thinking about voting for progressives. We're honest and clean, and you know it because we're not taking any corporate or PAC money. We're literally not allowed to be corrupt, okay? That's a fact. So you want to drain the swamp, you want to end crony capitalism, you hate crony capitalism, we hate crony capitalism. You hate the swamp, we hate the swamp. And we can prove it. Not some Republican that tells you he's going to drain the swamp and then fills his coffers with donor money. No, we got no big donor money. We're against big money. That is going to be deeply popular in the red states. Second of all, you know what we're interested in? Getting your jobs. We got to get your jobs. Now, here's one way to do it. Trump talks about $1 trillion in infrastructure and then sends a bill. His proposal is 80% private corporations, who shockingly enough are Republican donors, get contracts, and then they make you pay for it. Here's what I mean by that. They set up tolls all across the country, and you pay those tolls for eternity. Raise your hand if you like tolls on the highway. Let the record note that no one raised their hand. Okay. So, no, that's not infrastructure spending. How about you spend $1 trillion to clean the water everywhere, to clean the pipes? So our own reporter, Jordan Check, has done some wonderful work there, not only in Flint, Michigan, but in East Chicago, Indiana. He was there even before the New York Times was, and we pointed out how much lead there was in the soil, how much lead there was in the water, and how much more lead is in the water coming from the water heaters as opposed to the sinks where the EPA conveniently tests. Reuters came in and did a wonderful job backing us up and doing their own investigation, found out there are 3,000 communities in the country that have more lead in their water than Flint, Michigan. More. And there's 3,000 of them. Give me $1 trillion in infrastructure. I'll get you jobs, and I'll get you clean water. And they tell me that that'll be less popular than running in favor of big business in red states. I don't think so. I think everything they say is based on convenience, the convenience that gets them that same big money and the same occupation we've been talking about. By the way, I want to, before we move on to Wolfpack, one more shout out for Justice Democrats. And by the way, go join. Joining takes about 10 seconds. Just sign up on the website, say, yeah, I'm for that. I'm not for the corporate Democrats. I'm for representing the voters, not the donors. That's justicedemocrats.com. If you have someone in your neighborhood, in your community, who you think would be great, nominate them. We've already had 8,400 nominations. And so we're not getting ready to do 1 or 2 primaries. We're getting ready to do hundreds of primaries, okay? So we need everybody in their communities to nominate someone. And we're going to run real people for real change. And if they attack us for being real people, fantastic. You keep your politicians, we'll have real people, and we'll run real races, okay? We're coming for you. And if you want to donate, etc., of course, please do that. Support the hard work of all the people working on Justice Democrats. But exciting news today, Cory Bush is the first candidate that the Justice Democrats have. And she's doing a press conference today, as we speak, in St. Louis. So, please support her. She's a nurse, she's a pastor, she was a teacher. She's lived in St. Louis her whole life. She went to Ferguson because that's her neck of the woods. And she was out there protesting every day because that's her community, her neighborhood, what she grew up in. And so that's a real person who's been helping the community on the ground, no glory in it. She couldn't run for an even higher office. You know why? Because she has a job. And she couldn't leave her job day to day to run all across Missouri. And she's like, I love this community, I want to represent this community, and I'm going to stay right here and do that. So that's a real progressive candidate. So there's a lot more of those coming, but support Cory Bush and support all the ones that are coming. And they think, you know, as always, they say, oh yeah, you guys are not realistic, yada yada. But there's a wave coming, guys. I said back in 2013 that, and I remember when well, I didn't remember it then, but a viewer sent me, and I was like, oh, whoa, that was kind of right. I said back in 2013, you know what? This Bernie Sanders guy could beat Hillary Clinton. Yeah. And I said in the video, I wouldn't have said that a couple of years ago. And it's true, a couple of years ago, we didn't have enough momentum online. TV still had a monopoly. So it's a couple of years ago, from 2013 to 2011, 2010, etc. And they can't stand Bernie Sanders. They treat him with more disdain than they do for Donald Trump. Because all the corporate Democrats, when Trump is in office, they still have their jobs. Now, they would have liked jobs at the Oval Office. Those are funner jobs, better jobs, and they get paid more once they leave, right? But they still have their jobs. If Bernie wins, a real progressive wins, then the corrupt Democrats don't have their jobs anymore. That's why they have more disdain and fear of Bernie Sanders and progressives than they do of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is an easy whipping boy. Bernie Sanders would actually change things. So now, but along those lines, that wave did come. We were right. And Bernie Sanders, with no name recognition at all, against the most established Democrat that has ever run, closed a 60-point lead. Now these wise asses in Washington turn around and go, oh yeah, but he still lost. But wait. You're the one who said he had no chance. You're the one who had him at 1% chance. You're the one who dismissed him. And you said, oh, he has no name recognition, he's a socialist. Ha 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 ha, you laughed and laughed. Then he closed a 60-point lead, and you weren't laughing anymore. You were writing nonstop articles and going on cable TV, nonstop saying he's a socialist, he's dangerous, he's not going to win, whatever you do, don't vote for him. Well, I thought he couldn't win. Why are you sweating it? They were sweating it because he closed a 60-point lead. Because there's a wave. This country is going to go populist left or it's going to go populist right. It is not going to go to the establishment. We've had 40 years of establishment reign here, and the whole country says, we don't want it. We universally don't want it. So, since we gave them no populist left option in the general election, they went populist right and it was a disaster. Next time, we're going to give them a populist left option. And we're going to
So how do you win in the long run? Well, the number one answer, as you all know, and anybody who's paying attention to politics knows, is get the money out of politics. Because as long as they can raise billions of dollars, they're going to keep on doing that. They're going to keep flooding the airwaves with their poison and with their propaganda. So as we win elections and we put progressives in Congress, our number one priority, both at the national level and at the local level, has to be to get money out. The people that are doing that are Wolfpack, wolf-pac.com. And so join up, be a volunteer. We have 35,000 volunteers in West County. So now, we're told, oh no, you can't get an amendment. Okay, you know what percentage of the country agrees that money corrupts politics? 93%. So wait, let's get this straight. If you say that what 93% of the country agrees to is unrealistic, can we at least get agreement that we don't live in a democracy? If you say 93% is easy, great, let's do it tomorrow. If you say it's impossible, then agree with me that big money has occupied Washington and occupied our government. And it has. It has at the national level. Now, when Wolfpack started, we said we're going to go for an amendment, and we're going to do it through a convention, and money out of politics has to be the number one priority. Believe it or not, back in 2011 when we started, and it's hard to fathom this, but back then, most of the groups did not agree that money in politics was the number one issue. They said, no, maybe number 3, maybe number 7, right?
But how are you going to win on the environment if you don't get the money out and big oil's in charge? How are you going to win on Medicare for all if the drug companies and the health insurance companies are in charge? How are you going to win on financial stability if the bankers are in charge? So we won that battle, and now almost all the progressive groups concede, yes, okay, well, fine, money in politics, number one issue. So congratulations on that pressure and that hard work, and it worked, okay? The second battle was, do we need an amendment? At the time, people were saying, nah, an amendment, that seems kind of harsh. Can we just kind of nibble around the edges, maybe do the Disclose Act? Disclose Act says, you're allowed to keep taking illegal bribes, but can we just find out who's bribing you? So is that enough? No, hell no, it's not enough. Okay, I mean, you want to talk about the soft bigotry of low expectations, right? And guess what happened to the Disclose Act? First time they tried it, 59 votes, didn't pass a Republican filibuster. Second time they tried it, 53 votes, getting worse. Then they didn't bring it up again because right now it would get less than 50 votes. So what happened to your brilliant plan of the Disclose Act and nibbling around the edges? What happened to the tranquilizing drug of gradualism? That is exactly what it is, okay? And now, to be fair to all the groups, now they say, well, you guys are right, amendment. Yeah, that makes sense. by the way, they don't say it because we were right. They say it because you made them say it. Because they went back to their mailers and to their groups, and they said, okay, let's do a tiny bit of legislation. And they got emails back going, fuck no, let's go amendment, right? Amendment, 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 amendment. So we went on that. Now, the last part of the battle is, there's two ways to get an amendment. To propose an amendment. In order to propose an amendment, you could either do 2/3 of Congress propose it, or 2/3 of the states call for a convention specifically on one issue, and you get an amendment proposed that way. Either way, you have to ratify it with 38 states. Now, that's a really high bar, and we got to work super hard to get to that. Luckily, we have 93% of the American people on our side. That makes it a little bit easier on our issue, okay? But they say, no, Cenk, convention's dangerous. Let's ask 2/3 of Congress to do it. Look, I honestly don't know if they're kidding or not. Like, is that a joke? Does anyone in their right mind believe that 2/3 of this corrupt Congress is going to go, oh man, why didn't I think of that? Right, amendment to get money out of politics. You know the money I used, the corruption I used to get to the position and the privilege that I have? Let's get rid of it. Like, how I got all the power in the world? I don't want it. Let's just make it fair instead. They're not going to do that unless you make them do it. Did you know that half of the amendments we have today are because of a convention threat? So, for a great example is the 17th Amendment. 17th Amendment is for direct election of senators. We didn't have direct election. I don't know if you guys studied that. I'd forgotten it, honestly, from studying it in high school. So they used to be picked by the leaders in the states and not direct elections. And so when people said, hey, that's corrupt, we should do direct election of senators, the people who got into office through the old system were like, no. Why would I want direct election? I got through the old system. I want to keep the old system. I want the status quo. So, you know what happened? They got within one state of a convention. And you know what the senator said? Yeah, we meant direct election. Sure, of course. Yeah, direct election. That's what we should do. So you make them do it. You don't do beer summits. You don't ask pretty please. You make them do it. Did you know the Bill of Rights? Convention threat. They said if you're not going to do the First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, all these, the Bill of Rights, we're going to go to a convention and we're going to make you do a Bill of Rights. All of a sudden, yeah, we meant Bill of Rights. We meant Bill of Rights. So this is tried and true. It's been done many times before. But honestly, for me, it's not just about a convention threat. It's about going to the convention. We're going to go to, they say, oh yeah, but you're not really going to go. No, you're wrong. We are. We're going to have a convention. We're going to go, and we're going to get an amendment. So when I ask, okay, hey, convention is our path. We think it's the logical path. We think it's the only path. So you guys claim, so let's keep it real, a lot of the so-called progressive groups here in Washington are no such thing. It's not because they're bad people. They're pleasant people. You'd love to have tea with them. They would talk to you for the next 40 years about what they're not going to do. And those are the guys who told me, hey, buddy, I've been working on this for 40 years. Yeah, how's that going? And it's gotten worse and worse and worse. Buckley v. Vallejo was a disaster. Bellotti was a further disaster. And then on top of that, we had Citizens United with shot and dead horse. And all we've had in their reign of power for these old school progressive groups in Washington is nothing but miserable failure. And honestly, they think that I'm a bad guy and that I don't mind saying that. I do mind saying it, okay? I'm a progressive. I feel bad saying it. But it's true, we got to deal with the reality. If we don't, we're never going to get to the right answer. Are they winning? Are we winning? Do we have money out of politics? Are we anywhere near close? So I said to them, okay, what's your plan? You don't like the convention because you say, oh my God, that's real change, don't do a convention, right? All right, what's your plan? This was now about a year and a half ago. It's okay, we're going to wait for the Supreme Court. Oops. So they got their dream of a death on the Supreme Court, which is kind of morbid. And then Barack Obama nominated someone who had voted in favor of Citizens United. Oops. They said, no, don't worry. He'll probably switch when he's on the Supreme Court. Great, we elected a Democrat to nominate a judge that we hope will switch on Citizens United. And it didn't matter anyway. The Republicans were like, we're not going to give it to you. And what did the Democrats do? Oh, okay. Oh man, that sucks. Why don't we wait till the election, and if we lose, we won't get one at all. Wait, I thought you guys were pragmatic, and I thought you guys were winners. You had a Supreme Court seat, and you let it slip through your fingers. They did unprecedented obstructionism, and you didn't do a goddamn thing about it. So don't talk to me about how you're pragmatic and you get results. You don't get any results. We had this seat, we had it, and they just let it go. So never, ever, ever talk about how you're pragmatic or get results, because you don't. You have a miserable record of failure. So now to the groups, progressive groups who were saying Supreme Court, now, oops, they have a 5-4 advantage. Gorsuch is probably going to be on the seat, have that seat for 40 years. And God forbid anything else happens, they get a 6-3 advantage. So tell me how many decades we're going to wait with the tranquilizing drug of gradualism while we wait for the Supreme Court. Are you kidding me? And by the way, even if they got their dream and 28 years later we finally got a 5-4 advantage on the Supreme Court, well, then a Republican can win, and it goes back to 5-4 the other way. And you've accomplished nothing. It is a miserable non-strategy. Okay, then they say, all right, well, Supreme Court. Okay. No, that's okay. We're going to have changing demographics. And then eventually, enough Democrats will win. Wait a minute. Enough Democrats will win that are non-corrupted in this system so that you'll have 2/3 of Congress. How many decades are we waiting for those demographic changes? Notice that there is no immediate plan. There is no fierce urgency of now. In fact, if you talk about the fierce urgency of now, they say you're not practical, etc. So your plan is to wait and wait and wait for 20, 30, 40 years. Why don't you just admit it? You're not going to do a damn thing about it. You're not going to do a damn thing about it. So then, at least for God's sake, step aside. You know what they're doing now? They say, no, Cenk, you're being unfair. Have I talked so long that the mic is dead? Hello?
Short answer, yes. Long answer, yeah.
All right, let me see if I can switch the mic. Hold on one second, guys. Hello? Okay. Hello? Hey, there we go. That was obviously big money that did that. So, small money that got us the mic that stopped working. They say, oh no, Cenk, you're not being fair. We're working on local legislation. Okay, first of all, people who are working on local legislation, bless their hearts. They're good folks, and some of them are real. Represent.us does a wonderful job. They work on local legislation. They got a great bill passed in South Dakota, and what happened there was a crime. It was a crime against democracy. I don't know if you guys know this. They got a ballot measure to clean up corruption in South Dakota. It was a wonderful law, and despite overwhelming propaganda against it, or overwhelming money spent against it, they won anyway. And you know what the legislators did? They said, no, we like being corrupt. They came in and called an emergency session and said, we're just going to disregard the ballot measure. What? They just, for all of how much I've covered politics, and as you can tell, I'm not naive about it. I'm pragmatic, we want to win, etc. I've never seen anything like that, where they just said, we're just invalidating the law, even though you passed a ballot measure. We don't like democracy, we like corruption. We're going to bring back our ability to take lobbyist gifts. And you know what they did after they passed that law? They took a picture with lobbyist gifts to rub it in the voter's face. It's grotesque what they did. So those folks are doing a wonderful job, but that's a hell of a tough fight. You got to win in South Dakota, and then you got to make sure that they don't repeal that, and then you got to go to North Dakota, then you got to go to Oregon, etc. Some good folks working on that, and I support them in every way that I can. But groups like Common Cause, I'm in the States, I never see them unless they're fighting against us. And now, that might seem, for those of you who are unfamiliar, like, why would a progressive group that's been here 40, 50 years fight against you guys? That's crazy, right? By the way, they have no volunteers. They've been sitting here as a paper tiger for all these decades. The only thing they have is lobbyists. They have a lobbyist in almost every state and we say, hey, bring your citizens. Our citizens, volunteers, testify in all the different states. We say, bring them along. They don't have a single citizen volunteer, and we've never seen one in a committee here. Isn't that amazing? You know why? They get big donors, like the big donors who give to the Democratic Party. They maintain these groups, and they're not bad people. They say, hey, you know what? We want a little bit of change. We want gay people to have the same rights as straight people. Wonderful. We want blacks to be equal to whites. Wonderful. And that's it. And that's it. Any other change is dangerous. It's unsettling. It's unsettling. It's a risk. Yeah, we're not winning. We're losing. We're down 49-0. They're talking about risk. No. The other side shouldn't be taking a risk. They should be playing prevent defense. We need to go. We need to attack. So they send their lobbyists to go kill our legislation in state after state after state. You know how they do it? Not through a vote. They lose votes. We have 93% of the people on our side. We can get Republicans to vote with us because their voters are so mad about the corruption and about crony capitalism. No, they call up leaders and go, and they whisper, no, convention is dangerous. Don't allow a vote because you might lose the vote. So in New Mexico, didn't allow a vote. Maryland didn't allow a vote. Hawaii didn't allow a vote. So that's how these guys play dirty pool. And then when I call out Common Cause and others, they say, oh, how dare you? That is impolite. Are you kidding me? Our volunteers have been working 3-4 years, getting no money, just doing it for the love of democracy and country. And you go ruin all their efforts with a lobbyist call, and I'm impolite? No, I'm way too polite. We should be a lot angrier. So we should be angry at their ineffective so-called solutions, the fact that they've gotten nothing done whatsoever. I don't know why anybody would give those guys a dime. I mean, if you're a millionaire or a billionaire and you kind of like the system as it is, I get why you'd want to give it to them. And then it seems like, hey, Republicans and progressives agree. We shouldn't change the system. But if you're an actual American citizen and you want change right now, that makes no sense at all to go give to those lobbyists that ruin the hard work of actual progressives. And by the way, in the case of Wolfpack, it's nonpartisan. Actual voters across the board, 93% of the country, who says enough is enough, we want to end the corruption, we want free and fair elections. But they say, Cenk, you don't understand. They always think you guys and me and everybody, progressives are so naive, right? So what's their big claim? They're like, did you know that Republicans can also use a convention? No shit. Oh my God, you are so sage. I never thought about that. Yeah, of course. You know what else Republicans can do? Vote. Should we take the vote away? Well, that's a little different. No, not really. The vote's in the Constitution, and a convention is in the Constitution, and they're both part of democracy. So you know what happens when the Republicans try to use a convention? I know this is a really foreign concept to these Democrats. You fight them. You fight them on the substance. You fight them on the issues. Oh, but loser mentality. But Cenk, I'm so scared of the balanced budget amendment. What if they win? You weaklings. So you think you need 38 states to ratify an amendment. You think you can't hold 13 states against a balanced budget amendment? Here, let me dismiss the balanced budget argument like this, okay? So balanced budget, they say, oh yeah, you balance your budget at home, don't you? No, you don't. You got a mortgage? Then your budget ain't balanced. You got a car that you leased or that you didn't pay for it in its entirety? You didn't balance your budget. Go put your car away. Go sell your house right now. It's not a balanced budget. Sorry, you're in debt. Aren't you in debt? Credit card, you pay it every month. You don't pay it? You don't have a budget balanced. You know why? Because sometimes you need to invest. You need to invest in a business. You need to invest in government. You need to invest in your house. Because that is how the economy works. A balanced budget is a maniacal idea. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have balanced budgets in government. It means that you shouldn't mandate it because sometimes you need to invest. And every single American actually knows that. But the Democrats are so scared on fighting on the substance because they have internalized the occupation. So they think, oh no, the Republicans are going to win on balanced budget. They're right on balanced budget. No, they're not. They're miserably wrong on balanced budget. So yes, they can have a convention. It's in the Constitution. Because our founding fathers were revolutionaries. Well, how did we start this discussion in the first place? About revolution. Now, the wonderful thing about our Constitution is revolution is built into the document. It says, how do you do a revolution? Don't do it like we did. You don't have to pick up muskets. It's okay. We already thought of it. We already built it in. You can do it through amendments. That's exactly what an amendment is. It's a political revolution. You know what the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were? They were a revolution. You did not have the, thank you. The women's right to vote. A revolution that freed half the country, and they did it through an amendment. So the Founding Fathers knew, and they said it over and over again, these strict constructionists are liars. You actually want to do strict construction and original intent of the Founding Fathers? Go read the Founding Fathers. They said, my God, every generation, you should amend this document. Don't rely on us. 100 years from now, you should rely on your own wisdom and judgment. Luckily, we built two ways that you can do amendments in the Constitution. Congress, and sometimes Congress will get too corrupt, and then the states. You should do a convention of the states. You know who else did a convention? They did it. The Founding Fathers did. It's a little different. It was a constitutional convention, and yes, the states authorized them to rewrite the whole thing. So that's a common misconception. The majority of the states told the Founding Fathers, rewrite the Articles of Confederation. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. It was not a runaway convention. Now, when you point that out to Common Cause, literally one of their lobbyists in Hawaii said, one of the senators, Senator Rose in Hawaii said, well, you say this scary thing about a runaway convention, which, by the way, you know, I'm now saying, I just explained to you, is not true. But even if it were, it produced the United States Constitution, not that bad a result. And she said, well, some could argue. And these are the guys pretending to defend the Constitution. No, if you say we should never use Article 5 of the Constitution, and we should protect the status quo at all costs, you are not pro-Constitution. Just be honest about who you are, okay? So if you say, hey, listen, okay, you're right, you caught me. There are parts of the Constitution I don't like. That one allows the people to actually change the Constitution and change the status quo. And I don't want that. I don't want to change the status quo. At least you're being honest. Right now, they're not being honest. That's in the Constitution for a reason, because they knew we would have a situation like this. So, to wrap up, guys, how do we do the revolution? Yes, we do it through an amendment. We do it through getting money out of politics. Because if you don't get the money out, you are never, ever going to fix the system. And yes, the people in power who got in power through the old system will fight you tooth and nail. If they're not going to do it out of the goodness of their hearts, they're not going to do it over golf, they're not going to do it over beer. The way politics works is you're going to have to make them. So Wolfpack does it at the state level, and you'd be, as I've said many times on the show, you'd be shocked. At the state level, democracy exists. Yes, we have the left wing with their lobbyists who fight us even harder than the right wing, and the right wing have their lobbyists, and we beat the Koch brothers in New Jersey, but our warriors will beat their mercenaries. We will. So you fight in that level. But you also fight on the national level for Justice Democrats, because if you don't have support at the national level of real progressives in Congress, then we're not going to get the results. So whatever you do, do not listen to their siren calls about how we need to bend our heads and we need to listen to whatever they say, because they are pragmatic and they are winners, because they are no such thing. All they have ever led to is loss after loss after loss. Now it's our turn. So in terms of our turn, here's what I need you guys to do. Everybody here and everybody at home. Pick a fight. Any fight. So if you think Wolfpack's right for you, wonderful. Go to wolf-pack.com. If you think Justice Democrats is right for you, great, go to there, okay? Be a volunteer or help in any way that you can. If you think it's another group, by all means, go for it, man. If you think somebody else has a better plan, but at least you're fighting for a revolution, you're fighting for real change, do it. If you want to support us in the media, and thank God, you guys, the audience is amazing. They just gave us about $2 million. And what do we do? And we told them it was to hire reporters. You know what we did? We hired reporters. So they say, you know, we've been around 15 years. We now have 300 million views a month, 6 billion lifetime views. And they said, well, how'd you do that? It's a really weird concept. We were actually honest with the audience. And we built our incentive structure to serve the audience first. We get membership from the audience, we serve the audience. We get money from the audience, we serve the audience. So we asked for money to build our studio. People, this is 4 years back, gave us $425,000, and there was the studio. They saw it right there with their own eyes. We asked for reporters, we hired 12 of them. I think soon, if we pass 2 million, we're gonna hire 13 of them. We're gonna hire another person, okay? Proof is in the pudding. And over and over again, we're told that things are not possible.
Look, when I started the show 15 years ago, we were doing it out of my living room. Today, we're larger than CNN online. We're the largest online news. They tell me it's impossible, but we're kind of in the impossible business. So then they said, Wolfpack, you'll never get any states. We already have 5 states, including the largest state in the union. Almost every state we've ever gone to, they said it was impossible, and we did it anyway. I'm beginning to think they misunderstand the word impossible. They say Justice Democrats won't even get a single person in Congress. Hear me now, quote me later. We will get a hell of a lot more than one. Look, everybody in their right mind says, Cenk, don't overpromise, I get why, and don't build up expectations. If you got 5 Justice Democrats by 2018, it would be an earthquake. Every single person says that, earthquake. No, higher. So when I say a dozen or dozens of Justice Democrats, they go, impossible. But every time they say impossible, why they want you to sit on your couch? Look, you only have 2 options, and that's the reality. You all know it's corrupt. The whole country knows the system is corrupt. So your 2 options are, you either surrender or you fight back. Now I'm telling you, you can fight back in any way you like. You can do it through our groups, you can do it through the media, be your own media. You know, you're at a town hall and you don't see any cameras, somehow Michael Tracy missed it. So grab your cell phone and record them and ask them the tough questions. Are you for Medicare for all? Are you for peace? Are you going to fund terrorists in the middle of Syria? Are you in favor of warmongering in North Korea or Syria? Ask them the questions, be your own media. They tell you, hey, you can't get anywhere doing that. That's the same thing they told me. Because they don't want to be challenged. They don't want their power challenged. So, my ask of you and my advice to you is that you get up and you fight. So, my way of thinking is we don't surrender. I know we're under occupation. I know big money's in charge right now. But I say we fight in the primaries, we fight in the general elections, we fight at the conventions, we fight through these groups, we fight in the media, we fight everywhere, and that we never, ever surrender.
Yeah!
All right, guys, now it's your turn. Go out, join the revolution. You are the change you've been waiting for. There is no knight in shining armor coming to the rescue.
It isn't going to be a politician. It isn't going to be the establishment. They're not going to change their minds. The system is built in a way to support them. But you know what changes them? And it happens all the time. Every generation of Americans has amended the Constitution except us. And you know, you talk about impossible. How in the world could women get the right to vote if they don't have the right to vote in the first place? That was impossible. And they did it. The Freedom Riders, they would go on buses. Those buses would stop in the middle of Mississippi, and the Klan in their hoods would be waiting for those Freedom Riders fighting for civil rights to get off of that bus. And some of them got murdered in the middle of the night coming off those buses. And they did it. They got the Civil Rights Act. They got the Voting Rights Act. So don't talk to me about impossible. Every single time when progressives have fought back, when real Americans have fought back, we have won. The key is, and they know it, they don't want you to know that you have tremendous power. So what I'm asking you to do is to understand that you have that power and use that power in however way you can. And never, ever surrender. Thank you.